Bali volcano may slow global warming, Mount Agung could plunge Earth into cold spell. Bali's volcano eruption could plunge the Earth into a prolonged cold spell as scientists warn Mount Agung explosion could slow global climate change for up to 5 years. Volcanic debris, ash and other particles have continued to spew out of the volcano, leaving a 7-mile-high hazardous cloud above the mountaintop. Evacuation orders are in place for the 100,000 villagers and citizens living within 6 miles of the mountain, while thousands of tourists remain stranded after the main airport was closed for more than 2 days. But experts have warned the Bali volcano may affect the whole world, possibly cooling the planet for up to 5 years. And the result will be a reverse of global warming, as the planet's temperatures cool instead of increasing as projected. Scientists have known for a long time volcanic eruptions can alter the planet's climate for months on end, as millions of gases and particles spread through the atmosphere. But how much this has changed depends on what is being erupted, with the volcanic explosion causing the ideal conditions to trigger a drastic change to Earth's temperature. NASA climate scientist Chris Close said, to have a notable climate impact, there needs to be an explosive enough eruption, to get material in the stratosphere, and a sulfur-rich eruption. The SO2 converts to sulfate aerosol, which is what radiatively matters. If these conditions are met, the eruption cools the surface, troposphere and warms the stratosphere, the opposite of both patterns associated with CO2 increases. But both are very short-lived, years. In 1963, Mount Agung eruptions reached as high as 16 miles, 26 kilometers, above sea level. About 1,110 people were killed in the devastating blast. The 1963 eruption was not exceptional in volume of ash produced, according to Mr. Colos, but somewhat unique in sulfur released. He said, for volcanoes to do anything to climate you need a lot of SO2 released and a high enough plume for that SO2 to get into the stratosphere. The SO2 particles have sizes comparable to a visible wavelength and are strongly scattering to incoming sunlight, cooling the planet. If a similar SO2 release occurred, could cool planet for 1-2 years, and then a recovery. Karina Friendly, volcanologist and science lecturer at UCL, added the impact this has on the world's temperature depends on the scale of the eruption and is not likely to have a massive effect. She told The Standard, to have a meaningful impact on temperatures globally, the eruption would need to be on a huge scale. At the moment, it doesn't look like we will see any drastic impact on global temperatures. Locally we are likely to see some changes, though, but it is really limited to that. Changes of about 0.2 to 0.5 degrees of cooling are likely, if the eruption of Mount Agung is sustained. Fellow scientists remarked that Agung's recent behavior matches the buildup of that fateful explosion in 1963, suggesting a similar amount of sulfur dioxide could be released into the atmosphere. The last eruption knocked global temperatures down by 0.2 degrees Celsius for a year, but this latest one could see falling temperatures for around 2 years, only returning completely to normal by 2023. Climate researcher Zeke Hosfather said, this projection, which is based on the historical relationship between volcanic eruptions and temperature, suggests that an Agung eruption would reduce global temperatures between 0.1 C to 0.2 C in period from 2018 to 2020. A report from the Washington Post added the eruption could alter the global temperature for months and maybe even years to come. It said, in the short term, ash particles would cause regional cooling, as the layer of dust prevents some sunlight from reaching the ground. In the long term, sulfur dioxide would mix with water droplets in the atmosphere, spread across the globe and reflect sunlight for up to 3 years. Average global temperature could decrease significantly. Alan Roebuck, an environmental scientist at Rutgers University, explained that once high in the sky, sulfur dioxide reacts with water to produce droplets that can linger for a year or more. And when sunlight hits these droplets, energy is reflected back into space, depriving Earth of substantial amounts of sunlight and therefore lowering temperatures. The warning comes after up to 100,000 people were ordered to evacuate the vicinity and thousands of tourists have been stranded as the volcano continues to spew thick smoke clouds over the island. The massive plumes of dark ash from Mount Agung have reached highs of 7 miles above its rumbling summit, according to officials. The reopening on Wednesday afternoon of Bali's airport, which is about 60 kilometers, 37 miles, away from Mount Agung, followed a downgraded an aviation warning to one level below the most serious, with the arrival of more favorable winds. While Bali's airport was open again after a more than 2-day closure, the airport on neighboring Lombok Island was closed on Thursday due to ash from Agung, air traffic control provider AirNav said. Bali Airport's call center said 3 flights had left on Thursday morning, while 9 had arrived. Its website showed dozens of flights scheduled to fly to Singapore, Seoul, Perth and other cities.